So we'll just tie in some issues of davening, leaving out Yalav Yavo, leaving out Tal Matter. So there's a machlokes, the Rambam and the Ramban regarding tefillah in general, the obligation to daven. To the Rambam, in Hilchos Tefillah writes, mitzvah aseh l'spala b'chol yom. There's a biblical mitzvah every day of the year to daven, and the Ramban seems to disagree. The Ramban writes that tefillah is only doraisa b'ei sarah, during the time of need. If there's an earthquake, a war. He learned it out in Parashas Bahaloscha, but before they go to war, they had the tefillah. So it's a famous dispute, the Rambam and the Ramban. It seems to be a fundamental dispute on whether tefillah is doraisa d'Rabbanan. The Rambam clearly states it's doraisa, and the Ramban writes it seems to be only doraisa b'ei sarah. So the Rav Selevan points out he wants to minimize the machlokas. It's not a fundamental machlokas, the Rambam and the Ramban. Everybody agrees the only time tefillah is deraisa, and that's the definition of tefillah, is b'ei sarah. That the only time, everyone agrees there has to be a time of need for tefillah. The machlokas, the Rambam and the Ramban is, how do you define ei sarah? How do you define time of need? The Rambam just says, time of need is all the time. Human frailty, every day is one sarah after another. We know whether it's to us, someone else, you hear something there, slip on the ice, whatever it may be. Every day is a time of an ei sarah. Therefore the Rambam holds every day is an ei sarah. That's why he holds tefillah as deraisa. While the Ramban seems to go with the more external ei sarah, that the only time it's considered an ei sarah is in times of earthquake, war, etc. So that's how the Rav wanted to eliminate it, but on a simple level, the mitzvah the Rambam and the Ramban, and whether it's the rights of Rabbanan. So the Gemara in the fourth parak of Brachas introduces the concept of tashlumin. The concept that we know that we have a chiyuv to daven 3 times a day, and that's the Gemara in Brachas on Chavav and Beis. Machlokes in the Gemara, whether it's based on the Avos, Avram, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, or it's based on Karbanos. So the Gemara concludes it's both of them. That basically it's the Avos, we also use Karbanos because the Gemara wants to know where does Musaf come from. Because we only have 3 Avos. So therefore we conclude it's a combination of both the Avos and the Karbanos. And the commentators point out this, Pihashkafel more, they explain that what is these 2 concepts, tefillah keneged the avos and tefillah keneged karbanos, that there are 2 parts of prayer. There's the more formal prayer, like we have the text, tefillah kavua from the Anshe Knesset HaGedola, and then we have, perhaps just as important, if not more important, at least more important to us, our own personal tefillah, that we ask God for the things that we personally want. So I want to say tefillah keneged karbanos, that's the generic, because the same carbon every day doesn't make a difference. 365 days a year, 383 days, 354, whichever calendar you're using, every day of the year. But the Avos, Avram had his needs, Yitzchak had his needs, Yaakov had his needs, and that's why, really fundamentally, it's not just 3 of the same tefillah every day, it's 3 different tefillahs. That's why it's Avram. That's why Avram, if it's just going in order, Avram would have instituted Ma'ariv, because that's the first tefillah of the day, but it has to do each one with their essence. So that factor reminds of a Meshach Chochmah, that in the end of Parashas Vayechi, that the famous pasuk when with the bracha, so he's talking about, the pasuk says B'charbi uvakashti, that with the sword and bow and arrow, and the Targum writes something strange. He usually gives us what words mean. Instead he writes B'salusi, different types of prayer. So what's the Targum getting at here? Why is he taking out of the Pshuto? So already we see from the pasuk it's not the Pshuto, because if you're fighting a war before tanks and machine guns and all of that stuff, they either had sword, either hand-to-hand combat, or your bow and arrow. So obviously you used your bow and arrow first. When you got closer, but the fact the Gemara says, the Torah says, B'charbi uvakashti, obviously it doesn't mean, the Targum took it as a license, it didn't mean the actual literal translation. So the famous Meshach Chochman, the Brisker Rav, is something similar, that there's two types of tefillah, Bisalusi of Alusi. But what they call it is the tefillah kavua. The set tefillah of Anshe Knesset Hagadola, that's like the charbi, that's like the sword. That they were intuitive, they know exactly which words to use, how to make a request to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and therefore they know if you use certain words you have a better chance, or you have more of being answered perhaps. So that's the charbi. So that's powerful in its own right. This reading the tefillah, davening, the tefillah kavua, that's like a sword that it's inherently powerful. A little nick on the neck, so to speak, could kill you. So too, just a little kavanah gets you by. But your own personal tefillah is like the bow and arrow. You're pulling back to your heart and letting go. You put no effort in it. The bow and arrow, the arrow's not going anywhere. But the more you pull back, the further it is. So similarly, that's why it's always an issue. Like people want to know, someone who doesn't know Hebrew, let's say you know how to read Hebrew, but you don't understand it. So you're better off davening in English, the language, or French, or whatever language you understand, versus Hebrew. So that's a discussion, but it's based on this Meshach Chochma, it would be a no-brainer. You would think for sure daven English or whatever language you know. But we see there is something. If you're going to daven in Lashon HaKodesh, it's what it's mean. Obviously, today we have Hebrew English. You could just go ahead and look it up. But the Hebrew in itself has extra power. But ultimately, so obviously, someone who doesn't know English reads English. It's a meaningless tefillah. It's only if you read it b'charbi. So that's the Gemara over there. So the Gemara tells us in Brachas the concept of tashlumin, that if you miss a tefillah, Arvis, Shacharis, and Mincha, the Gemara concludes on all three of those tefillahs you have tashlumin. And in fact, some Rishonim say how far is the law of tashlumin? So it's a discussion among the Rishonim. We just go by the next tefillah. If you miss Shacharis, you can make it up in Mincha Ma'arav. And the Gemara is not sure, but concludes, what about Mincha to Ma'arav, because that's 2 different days. But the Gemara concludes that's also okay. So the bottom line is, every tefillah, you have the next tefillah to make it up. And of course, Tosfos asked the obvious question, what about Musaf? How come the Gemara leaves out Tashlumin for Musaf? The Gemara leaves out Tashlumin for Musaf because there is no Tashlumin for Musaf. Why not? Because Tefillah, why is there Tashlumin? It's B'etzem Rachamim. It's basically Bakashas Rachamim, and that's what you're doing. So therefore, it's always appropriate to ask for more. But Musaf is fundamentally the Karbanos, Avra Yamol Bato Karbana. Once you pass the time, the Karbanos is over, and therefore it's not meaningful to bring a carbon not on its proper time. At best, not meaningful, maybe a negative. So therefore, we don't have any tashlumin by Musaf. We have it by. That's why, in fact, that's how some.
No machlokus then as to mishum mab tiknu tefillah, whether it's be because of the avos or because of the.
You mean Musaf? You mean?
Yeah, like does this give you a raya? Or not, or you just say Musaf it's shown. Musaf seems to be that it goes by korbanos,
right?
Not for rachmim or anything else. Is that could you use that as a proof or not?
For the other three.
Yeah. Which way do you want to bring it up?
Well, if we're saying that this is a machlokas as to what is the reason why tefillos were misakin, right? We have a machlokas. So Musaf seems to suggest that it would be because of korbanos,
right?
Or do you want to answer? No, Musaf is its own. It doesn't prove anything with regards to.
That's what basically Tosfos is saying. That by Tosfos is assuming that the fact it's no tashlumin. What this is the sort of Tosfos is that the other tefillahs are fundamentally rachamim, but Musaf is fundamentally karbanos. So there wouldn't be a raya to the other. In fact, that could be also the discussion. That's why women are pater from tefillas Musaf. Because Bishkom, if it's fundamentally Rachamim, then why should women be pater from Musaf?
Right.
But it's fundamentally, so Musaf, so Musaf we see is a unique tefillah, so it doesn't try to, you can't bring any strong rayas. You could argue,
Shabbos Shacharis is fundamentally Rachamim?
Yeah, we have, it's tefillah in general, except you mentioned the me'ain of the Maori. I mean, whatever on Shacharis that you mentioned Shabbos, but
All you do is mention Shabbos, and then the rest is the same as Musaf, except for the Korbanos. So, where's the Rachamim difference?
no, I mean I mean.
Saying that with Chasenu, I can understand, that's Rachamim. But you say that in Musaf too.
No, right, but I'm not saying that's like, I'm saying they're talking about more fundamentally, then we can discuss how the actual text fits into that. They're talking about fundamentally, Shacharis, Mincha, Ma'ariv was set up, the essence of Tefillah in general was set up as Rachamim. So how each Tefillah fits into Rachamim, we could, then we could get into, in terms of if we actually see it in the text or not. I'm saying,
Okay.
right, so that's just another, that's just a different thing. Shabbos, as mentioned Shabbos, that's a different issue, but that just takes away the middle section of Bakashas. I guess right, I guess the question, if you're assuming Tefillah is basically Rachamim because of the middle section, then one could raise the issue on Shabbos and Yantif, but we don't have that, that's the nature of your question?
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you don't have then depending why if you say it's fundamental, then there's no kasha. But if you assume that it's because of the bakasha section, then the raya is that we do have tashlumin on Shabbos. I mean, I'm not bringing a proof from anything I see inside. Because I know the answer. I know if I miss to them. So therefore, based on the principle, it is rachamim. Even though you're right, you don't have you're lacking in the bakasha section. So that's the halacha of tashlumin. So the question is, the Gemara tells us later on, Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, there's a special mitzvah to mention Me'ein HaMa'ora. You mentioned Ya'aleh V'Yavel on Rosh Chodesh.
It'll go up.
Shabbos, you mentioned Shabbos. So you mentioned there's a special mitzvah in your tefillah, and also in Birkas Hamazon as well, to mention the specific mention of that day. So we'll start off with Ya'aleh V'Yavel, and we'll move into Talomater. So there's a Tosas on Chavav Amid Beis, which we started discussing last time, a couple of weeks ago, on the following case. So let's say it's the last day of Rosh Chodesh. So, and whatever it is, where it's 1 day, 2 day, you daven Shemona Esrei, you did daven Shemona Esrei, you daven Mincha, and you left off Ya'aleh V'Yavel from the Shemona Esrei. And then, if you remember right away, okay, so daven over again. But let's say you remember it's already nighttime. So the question is, do I have to daven 2 Shemona Esreis the night following Rosh Chodesh? So that, Mincha, you daven Mincha. If you didn't daven Mincha, then you certainly have to daven 2 Shemona Esreis. Our question is, you daven Mincha, but you left off Ya'aleh V'Yavel. So that's the top Tosas on Chavav Amid Beis in Brachas. Rabbeinu Yehuda says, what's the point? You're ready. What are you going to gain? Because you don't mention Ya'aleh V'Yavel, so what's the point of davening over? Right. And the Rif, Tosas quotes the Sephardi Rishonim that says that, yeah, you have to go back. So it's a fundamental.
Nobody says
right, you have to repeat the Shemona Esrei, but without Ya'aleh V'Yavel. So it's a Machokas Rabbeinu Yehuda and the Rif on whether you have to repeat Shemona Esrei over the night following Ya'aleh V'Yavel. So what's the Nekudas HaMachokas? What's the issue? So the issue is, how do you view a Shemona Esrei without Ya'aleh V'Yavel? In other words, do we view it that you yotze your mitzvah of tefillah, except I'm lacking in the chiyuv haskara of Baruch Hashem Yom Yom, and since the Chachamim said I can't just say Ya'aleh V'Yavel in a vacuum, I'm forced to daven over again, only not because I need tefillah, mincha, that I already have, but I have to, or whatever tefillah I'm talking about, because I need Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. Everyone agrees you have to go back. The question is, why do you have to go back? Are you lacking in the chiyuv haskara, and since you can't do it in a vacuum, the only way you can do it is by re-davening over again? Or no, I say I'm not Yotzei at all. Shemona Esrei without Ya'aleh V'Yavel is a nothing. It's like I didn't daven Mincha that day, and everyone agrees if I didn't daven Mincha that day, I have to daven over. So Rabbeinu Yehuda clearly holds like the first one, that You fulfilled your Yotzei Tefillah. So he says, what are you going to gain by repeating Shemona Esrei? Tefillah you have, Yalav Yavo's over, no, let's keep on going. And the Rif disagrees, and he says it's like someone who missed Mincha. You didn't daven at all. So if you didn't daven at all, you have to daven over again. So that's a fundamental machlokas, the Rif and Rabbeinu Yehuda. How do we paskin halacha l'maisa if it happens? If one does forget Yalav Yavo at Mincha, the last Mincha of Rosh Chodesh. So it seems to be a Sveika Dedina. It seems to be it's not 100% clear in the halacha. And therefore what they recommend, so with according to Rabbeinu Yehuda, you don't have to daven. According to Rabbi Yehuda, there's no tashlumin. And according to the Rif, you have to. So the Mishnah Berurah says you make the following Tanai. You say, if the halacha is like the Rif, I'm davening because I have to. It's tashlumin. And if the halacha is like Rabbeinu Yehuda, let this be a tfilas nedava. Let this be an extra, like you have a carbon nedava. This would be because normally the halacha is we don't add extra tefillas. Halavai, we have kavanah on the ones we do. We don't add extra tefillas. However, if it's a suffix halacha, we do. In fact, somewhere the same concept, nothing to do with this case, but a sveika dedina, they write in the following case. It has to do with talamatar actually. Anyway, that we know that halacha is in Eretz Yisrael. We start saying talamatar on Zayin Mar Cheshvan. And in Chutz La'aretz we begin 60 days after the Kufas Tishrei, or December 4th at night. So the shaila is, what happens if you started davening tefillah, let's say you started saying talamatar, but before this, let's say you're in Chutz La'aretz before December 4th, or in Eretz Yisrael, even let's say after Yanta, before Zayim Mar Cheshvan. So, Pasha should daven in the wrong tefillah. However, there's a Tshuvas Harash. There's a famous Tshuvas Harash that said the whole date of December 4th, 60 days after Tekufas Tishri, only makes sense in Babel. It's the rainy season, but in other places, it's rainy season way before. Why wait? Right after Yantiv, you should start saying talamatar. So, a lot of people agree with the Russian principle. Many people agree with the Russian principle that you should do it, but they don't want to change it. But they don't want to change the minhag. However, even though we don't accept the Rush l'chadchila, so the Machaber quotes the Rush, but then he says it's not the minhag. So it seems from the and then the Ramaka. So it seems from the Machaber. So what should you do then if you're in a place where it needs rain, but it's before December 4th? So according to the Machaber, the Sephardi poskim recommend you should make this following stipulation. You should daven, the second one is a tzilas nedava. If the halacha is like the Rush, so then, I don't have, so then I'm Yod say this will be a nedava. But if the halacha is not like the Rush, I'm davening a tzilas. So it's more, the Ramah seems to accept it, that you wouldn't have to daven over again. But especially according to the Svardim, if you would say v'sein talamatar, let's say in Chutz La'aretz, before December 4th, the best date, the Ramosha seems to go with the Rush, and he seems to say B'di'evid, it's okay. But the Sephardi poskim say better, maybe go with it. So this it's another example of the only time we recommend the Tfilas Nedava if it's a Dawa Halacha. If not, we don't want to add Tfilas, we don't have Kavanah enough to begin with. So that's how we pass it. But the fundamental issue is, how do you view a Shemona Esrei without Yalav Yavo? Is it a tefillah except you're lacking in the chi of haskara, or no? It's nothing, and therefore you have to daven it over. Everyone agrees you have to daven over again. Again, let me go back. The Gemara tells us you don't have to go back if you forget Yalav Yavel at Ma'ariv. So that's this. So Ma'ariv we're not talking about. The simple pshat before we get into the next issue is Shacharis and Mincha. If you miss Yalav Yavel, you have to go back. So at this point, we're talking about Shacharis and Mincha. where the halacha says you have to go back, and therefore we only want to know why you have to go back. And so, why nafkamina? It only makes a difference if you forget and you remember when Rosh Chodesh is over. If you remember 5 minutes later, you just daven over again. We'll see about chakras in a minute, but that's the simple shot. So that's the first nafkamina. Whether in terms of whether you have to daven over again if you missed the last tefillah of Rosh Chodesh. There's a famous Magen Avram. The Magen Avram writes, he says a tremendous chiddush, that when is this true that if I forget Ya'alav V'Yavo I have to go back? That's only before I daven Musaf. But let's say it's Rosh Chodesh. So you daven Shacharis, usually you daven Musaf pretty soon afterwards. So when do I say you have to go back? If you forgot Ya'alav V'Yavo and Shacharis, you remembered, then you go back. But if you forgot Ya'alav V'Yavo and Shacharis, you daven Musaf, and then you remember, oh yeah, Ya'alav V'Yavo, the Magen Avram writes you do not have to repeat Shacharis. And so clearly the Magen Avram is working with Shitas Rabbeinu Yehuda, that he's obviously learning you yotze your mitzvah tefillah, you're only lacking the Chiyuv Atzkara, because what is Musaf, as we clearly said, Musaf and Shacharis have nothing to do with one another. No one would say, if I didn't daven Shacharis, and I daven Musaf first by mistake, that's it, I don't have to, it's ridiculous. So obviously, the Magen Avram is clearly working with the Shita of Rabbeinu Yehuda, and clearly the Rif would not agree with this chiddush of the Magen Avram. He'd say it's ridiculous. He would say this like if you didn't daven Shacharis, you can't make it up with Musaf. So that would be another nafkamina. They're working with Rabbeinu Yehuda. If you daven Musaf and then you remembered the Haskara of Musaf is good enough, it's somech, it's close enough, that as long as you will assume you do it during Zman Shacharis, it's close enough to count for it. And in fact, that I mentioned last time, Rav Soloveitchik has a bigger chiddush. He takes the Magen Avram a step further. The Magen Avram, and that's the classical poskim, all say it's only if you didn't daven Musaf yet. Most would say if you didn't daven Musaf yet, then you have to go daven Shacharis over with Ya'alav V'Yavo. The Rav says no. The Rav says even if you remember beforehand, I still tell you to rely on Musaf. So how could the Rav cholek on the Magen Avram? Maybe he does on many issues. But he's really just arguing on a lechatchila here. In other words, even the Magen Avram agrees once you daven Musaf, you yotze. It's only a question, what is the lesser of the two evils? Should you go ahead and daven again Shacharis, or no, just rely on Musaf? So the Rav felt, and it seems very compelling to me as well, that we know the halach is really, if you don't have kavanah and bracha rishona, you have to go back. But what is the Ramarai? What can we do? We won't have time to go to work. We'll be davening all day because we're never going to have kavanah. So what can we do? So therefore we don't go back. But so therefore he points out like this. He thinks it's better to go ahead and just rely on the lechatchila. Better to rely on the b'di'eved of hearing Musaf than going ahead and davening another Shemona Esrei, which you're not going to have kavanah anyway. So therefore, and that's based on the Rav, that's my age. So when people come, and I get this question a lot, or I should say it's not uncommon, people come to me like before, usually at Hala they realize they forgot to say Ya'alav V'Yavo because they probably forgot it was Rosh Chodesh. I forgot to say Ya'alav V'Yavo, what should I do? So I tell them, come back to me after Musaf. And I'll tell you, I can't answer you now, come back to me after Musaf. And they come back to me after Musaf, depending who it is, I tell them the Shtickle Torah, or I just tell them they don't have to go back, depending who it is. But it seems more compelling to me not to repeat a whole Shemona Esrei, which we're not going to have kavanah. That being said, you'll see the classical poskim seem to say...
halacha though, that if they didn't ask them, you would just repeat anyway.
Right, that's what they would do.
Pretty much, sure.
Yeah. So that'd be another nafkamina between the Rif and Rabbeinu Yehuda, this Magen Avram. So the third thing we discussed as well was the question of what about someone's davening in, let's say you forget Ya'alav V'Yavo, and let's say you're davening in shul, and you forget Ya'alav V'Yavo, and it's not just Ya'alav V'Yavo, but it's Mashiv Haruach, Talmud Mater. The Gemara tells us in the fourth parak of Brachas, if you listen to the Shliach Tzibur, you could just, and then you don't have to daven over again. Well, I guess you are, depending how you're looking at it. However you want to look at the Lumdis, you're listening to the Shliach Tzibur, and you could be yotze with him. All the posts don't recommend that today. Make her adin, you can. They say because either because of the noise in the shul, you can't hear the Shliach Tzibor. So number one, to get off the bat, you have to hear every word. Number one, if you can't hear every word, it's not even a discussion. Assuming you can hear every word, so they say it's hard as it is to daven with kavanah. It's even harder to listen to someone with kavanah, and therefore, and there is a difference. If you're listening and you don't have kavanah, you're not yotzei. But if you're davening without kavanah, you are. That's why I like making my own kiddush Friday night. Well, certainly when I'm home, but I like making it when I go to other places also. Because if I'm spacing out during my own kiddush, I'm yotzei. If I'm spacing out during someone else's kiddush, I'm not. That's a general rule. So that's why the poskim say better to daven yourself, because
So if you don't hear every word, is that necessarily such a big issue? So
you mean in kiddush or you mean in daven?
in either. Okay, Kiddush maybe, but let's say talking about davening.
It is because we're assuming you only can be yotzei the chiyuv haskara in the context of Shemona Esrei.
So let's say you said it yourself and you left out a word. Would that be such an
No,
issue?
so that depends on what the word, then it wouldn't be limited to whatever the halacha would be
You said
if you
yourself,
forgot
that's
that
what
word.
I'm saying,
Yeah,
I think.
exactly. Yeah, but we believe, but that's Minig North America. Speaking of Kiddush, we do say Shemaya Kaona on Chatzi Pasuk. What I mean is, a lot of times people listen and Kivanu, they start singing. So strictly speaking, the Rishonim say it's okay. So you can, as long as you said every word. We do paskin, you can do half and half or whatever, but as long as you have to make sure every word was done either by, however it's going to be done. So they point out that they recommend you daven over yourself. But strictly speaking, if you listen to the Shliach Tzibor, you could be yotzei. So Tosas there asked, what are you talking about? We have a famous Gemara in Rosh Hashanah that why do we have Chazaras Hashatz in the first place? Why do we repeat Shemona Esrei? For the Eino Baki. It's only set up for the person. In other words, if I say, I'm not in the mood to daven today, I'll just listen to someone else, so that's not good. It's if you don't know how to read yourself, that's why Chazal instituted the Chazaras Hashatz. So Tosas asked, obviously if you daven Shemona Esrei, you left out Ya'alav V'Yavo, you must know how to daven. So how could you tell me that if you forgot Ya'alav V'Yavo, or Mashiv Haruach, or whatever we're talking about, that you could just listen to the Shliach Tzibor. So what do we see? I think he based it to Hilchos Kedolos, but what do we see? They're clearly working with the Yesod of Rabbeinu Yehuda. You're right. When do we say it's only for the Eino Baki if you want to be Yotzei your mitzvah of Tefillah? But apparently what? You daven yourself, so you're already Yotzei Shacharis, Mincha, whatever Tefillah we're talking about. Why do you have to go back? Because you're lacking the chiyuv haskara of Ya'alav V'Yavo. So that's why you have to go back. So it's enough to rely. We could be making rely on the Shliach Tzibor to fulfill your chiyuv haskara, because you're already yotzei your mitzvah of tefillah. You're already yotzei. So those are three basic nafkaminas. If you forget Ya'alav V'Yavo, the last mincha of Rosh Chodesh, do you have to repeat or not? According to Rabbi Yehuda, know what's the point. The Rif says yes. Svega the Dina, we daven with the tefillas Nadava. The second nafkamina is if I daven Musaf already, or according to Rabbi, if I'm going to daven Musaf right after, even if I didn't do it. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, Musaf covers you on the Chiyuv Haskara, and according to Rif, it doesn't. And the third one, can I listen to the Shliach Tzibor if I forgot Ya'alav V'Yavo? According to the Rif, no way. How can you? Unless he disagrees with that concept of the Eino Baki. So we know, let's say, we started saying V'sein Talomater. So let's say what happens this Friday, tomorrow, a person davens Mincha, and they leave out V'sein Talomater Lavracha. Did you remember right away? Again, did you know you forgot? Then go back and repeat. But let's say you remember it's already too late. Whatever too late to daven Mincha means, that's a separate share, but it's whatever too late is, you pass the Zman HaMincha, and now the question is, do I have to daven 2 Shemona Esreis Friday night? Because I left out, because that is the halacha. If you know you forgot the same, within the first 30 days, if you're misupik, so then you go with the chazaka, you didn't say it, and you have to go back. But now if you're not sure, you don't have to go back. But let's assume you know for sure, I have no doubt. I did not say V'sein Talomater. And now it's Friday night. do I have to daven two Shemona Esrei? So what's the issue? Why wouldn't you? The issue is because there is no B'sein Tal Matter in the Shabbos Shemona Esrei, because we take out the Bakasha section, and it's just the Shabbos section. So the question is there any point in me repeating a second Shemona Esrei if there's no... So Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, he wants to say this is the same issue as Yalav Yavo. The same issue I've been discussing with the last mincha before. He wants to say it's the same issue as the Yalav Yavo. It's a machlokes. Rabbeinu Yehuda would come out. He's assuming the same Talmud is only a chi of haskara. It has the same status as Yalav Yavo, and therefore it'd be the same issue there. So therefore, how did we say we paskin there? We said it's a sveika dedina, and we daven twice. The second one being a tefillah nedava. But can we do that in this case? The answer is no, because the Rambam tells us no tefillah nedava on Shabbos. So therefore, we're stuck. Therefore, according to Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank and probably most of the poskim, one would not repeat Shemona Esrei. We'll assume you fulfilled your mitzvah of Tfilas Mincha. But what can you do? There is no Talmud. That seems to be the standard psak. Rav Chaim disagrees. Rav Chaim disagrees only because fundamentally he agrees with everything what Tzvi Pesach Frank said except one thing. He says it's not like Yalav Yavo. He says it's inherent to the Shemona Esrei. It's not a chi of sheila. It's part and parcel of the text of the Tefillah. And therefore he says, this is like if you missed a different text of the Tefillah, you're not Yotze, you'd have to repeat it. It's kind of like the Rif learns by Yalav Yavo, the Rav Chaim says by Vitalo Mater, and he says, it's no shaila, you have to go back. So if you're a real brisker, and you forgot Talo Mater...
As you know that it's a critical part of the text.
Yeah, so in fact, that's where Tzvi Pesach Frank wants to say the raya against Rav Chaim. The reason why I say it's not, because what's the halacha? If you forget the saying Talo Mater in the bracha of Baruch Aleinu, so what do? So if you remember right away, Baruch Hashanim, so something you could put it in right there. But let's say we paskin, you can make it up in Shema Koenu. So he says it's even less inherent than Yalav Yavo. Yalav Yavo I can't put into the Shema Koenu. Yalav Yavo has its one spot. The fact that we can do the same Talo Mater later on shows it's not inherent at all. Alright, so what would Rav Chaim say to that? So actually, I'm just thinking now this could tie into an interesting machlokas to Rambam and Tosas, because there's another question that's probably common. Let's say you remember after Shomei Tefillah that you didn't say V'sein Talo Mater Lavracha. So what do you do? So it depends. So Tosas writes, well, the Rambam writes and the Shulchan Aruch writes, you go back to Baruch Aleinu. Tosas writes, like I would have said, this Al Pi Svara, that where would you go back to? Go back to Shema Koleinu. What if we already know that Shema Koleinu works? Why should I get into all these extra brachas? Let me just go back, repeat Shema Koleinu, and just do it. That's Tosas writes, which I would have said on my own Al Pi Svara. Yet the Rambam and the Shulchan Aruch paskin, you have to go back to Baruch. What's the Nekudas Hamachokes between the Bali Tosas and the Rambam? So it seems to be, in terms of that, basically the Tosas sheet is really two. There's really there's a chiyuv she'ela to say Talo Mater in Shemona Esrei in the Bakasha section, obviously because it's a request. L'chatchila they said you should put it in Baruch Aleinu, but if not, b'diavad you could put it into the Shema Koleinu. It's not, but it's fundamentally not even really even a b'diavad. It's just like you should put it in the Shema Koleinu, but it's a chiyuv she'ela in the Bakasha section. The ideal, this thing makes the most in Baruch Aleinu, but Shema Koleinu works. The Rambam seems to learn no. The chiyuv is there's only one place in Shemona Esrei. Like Rav Chaim, that's why Rav Chaim is probably basing it on the Rambam, that you have to say saying Talo Mater and Baruch Aleinu. That's it. There's no other nothing, and that's why, according to the Rambam, once you finish Baruch Hashem, that's another machlokas Tosas the Rambam. If I say Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashanim, the bracha is over. You're finished according to the Rambam. Tosfos says, what's the difference? It's close to it, it's good enough, you could throw it in like by Machaya Meitza by Masha Baruach. So the Rav explains the Rambam, there's only one place for saying Talmud, that's the Baruch Leino. What are you talking about? But even the Rambam, halacha lamod that we can make it up in Shema Koheino. So what do you mean there's only one place? So Rav is a big chiddush, Rav Chaim is a big chiddush, that no, that's working midin tashlubin. Usually, but the chiddush is, it's a big chiddush. Normally we assume tashlubin is the next tefillah. The chiddush of the Rav Chaim and the Rambam, or where they say the halacha is, that really there's only one place. It's part of the nusach HaTfilah, that's it. However, for whatever reason, there's a special dinta, and in fact, the Bir Halacha, he quotes the Bir Halacha, that it's not really only limited to saying Talamata. The Bir Halacha writes, any of those, if you missed any parts of let's say you skip some middle section of one in the middle, you can make it up, and the Bir Halacha writes that. So it's not even the Bir Halacha is the Kiddush also, but I'm saying what we used to. But so he's saying really it's fundamentally that's the place. How do you make it up in Shema Kohen? That's the Din Tashlumin. Once you pass Ritzei, Batul Din Tashlumin, you have to go back to there's nothing to talk about. Okay. Now where do I put Baruch Aleinu? Where do I put Raveinu? There's only one place. You put Refuah, so that's a fundamental machlokas. But that's a Rav Chaim, right? And therefore he says, if you forget the saying Talmud Matzah, that's it. It's like you didn't daven at all, and the nafkamina would be Friday night. That according to the Briskers, you'd have to go ahead and daven Shmon Esrei again Friday night. So halacha we assume like Rasvi Pesach Frank, it's the same halacha as Yalav Yavo. It's a Sveika Dedina. All on Rosh Chodesh where we could do it Tfilas and the Dava during the week. So we go with the Tanai, we daven both, but on Friday night when you can't do it Tfilas and the Dava, so therefore we assume that you don't do it over again, and you yotze with your tefillah, you yotze your tefillas mincha in Erev Shabbos, and Rav Chaim disagrees, and he says that you go ahead and you have to daven b'kiyah, it's inherent to the tefillah. So all these issues are hinge on these issues of how you view, and that's a general question. All type of hosafas, you have to know. Are they part of the nusach HaTfilah? Are they, are they considered? In fact, I just conclude that's what the Rabbi. It's the same issue by Birchas Hamazon, that he writes. Let's say again. So the lach is if you forget Ritzei in Shabbos, you have to go back. We pass in a Shalosh Shidduch, you don't, because since there are those shitas that say you could be Yotzei Shalosh Shidduch without bread, so therefore even if you forget Ritzei at Shalosh Shidduch, you don't have to go back. But for the two other meals, you have to go back. So the question is, why do you have to go back? Or it's Yalav Yavo on Yantif also, same question. It wouldn't be on Rosh Chodesh because Rosh Chodesh there's no Chi of Suda. So if there's no Chi of Suda, so then you don't have to. That's the general principle. You only have to know the principle is if you have to eat a meal now, then I have to go back. If I don't have to eat a meal now, I don't have to go back. So on Rosh Chodesh, it's praiseworthy to have a meal, but I don't have to have a meal on Rosh Chodesh. But on Shabbos I have a chiyuv, and on Yom Tov I have a chiyuv. So let's say on a day where I have a chiyuv to Suda, I forget Yalav Yavu or Ritzei. So the halacha is everyone agrees, you got to go back. Why do you have to go back? Same chakira. Do I go back because it's like I didn't bench, and therefore that's why I have to go back? Benching without Yalav Yavu is a nothing. Well, no, I was Yotzei Tefillah. I'm lacking Baruch Hashem Yom Yom. My nafkamina. So the Rav says, what about the following case? Let's say you're reading, let's say you have three people you're reading, and all three you forget Ritzei, or whatever, and now you all have to go back, are you chayav to do Zimun again? So if you assume you Yotze Berachas Hamazon, no Zimun. If you assume you're not Yotze benching, you do. So I think we assume, like the former, that you're Yotze, you're benching already, and therefore you would not do Zimun. It's a Chiyav Askara, and you won't have to go back. But it's the same issue in terms of how you view what's essential and what's not in the different nafkaminas.